Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
8:37 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Brian Wilson in with you. Steve Moore from the Wall Street Journal filling in for Larry O'Connor, who's spending some time with family post-Thanksgiving. Be back soon. And, look, there was something that happened while many of you were off eating your turkey, and I'm sure you're eating dressing and not stuffing while you were doing that. You may have missed what happened in Egypt, where Islamist President Mohamed Morsi decreed on November 22nd that his pronouncements and edicts were beyond the reach of judicial review. I point out that just last week, I guess it was the New York Times, had this glowing story about President Obama reaching out to Morsi and how President Obama was very impressed with Morsi as being a pragmatist until on November 22nd he decided that he was basically the new Egyptian pharaoh. We have on the line Dr. Walid Phares, Fox News Middle East analyst and author of The Coming Revolution, The Struggle for Freedom in the Middle East. Dr. Phares, thanks for joining us here on our morning program.
Thank you very much for having me today.
All right, so talk a little bit about what Morsi has done and how it's going over.
Well, the problem, as you know, is that mainstream media in America and the West in general presents us those issues as a salami slice, meaning at this day, at this point, the guy was very nice. Yeah, but he's the head of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is an organization that has been there for 80 years with long-term strategies, and the ultimate objective is to establish, as they say, an Islamist state. So we know where they're going. Meanwhile, what Morsi has been doing is that, first of all, he grabbed power within the Egyptian revolution. He sidelined youth, women, minorities, middle class, labor forces, the ones that actually began the revolution. Then he sidelined the military. Then he took the control of the parliament, and then, of course, the presidency, became president. Then he weakened the military further, and the last act now is to take out all the resistance in the future that could be the judicial branch, as you just explained in the introduction. When that happened, then civil society forces took to the streets. They understood that we got rid, they said, of Mubarak, the old pharaoh, the moderate pharaoh, and now we're having a radical pharaoh. And that explains what's happening in Tahrir Square today.
All right, so it's been described as being Egypt on the edge. What has been the reaction in the country, and what's likely to happen in the days ahead?
Well, what is going to happen simply is a series of demonstrations, and we've seen this in the past, meaning last week the opposition organized a demonstration telling the international community we're not going to accept that Islamist dictatorship after a Mubarak dictatorship. What Morsi is going to do this week, most likely, as we understand, is to organize a super demonstration by the Muslim Brotherhood, put hundreds of thousands of people in Tahrir Square, very well organized, marching like the National Socialists in Germany in the 30s to tell the world, I have the majority. To that, there will be an answer, probably another demonstration by the opposition. So a cycle of opposition and regime demonstrations. We don't know if this is going to lead to a clash, an urban clash or not, was yet to be seen.
It certainly is a possibility, though.
Oh, definitely the demonstrators, the anti-Morsi demonstrators, have been clashing with police, but that is not, this is the appetizer.
Yeah.
The real clash is if demonstrators on both sides, civil society, liberal, secular, Democrat, versus the Islamists, versus the Muslim Brotherhood. And here we're going to see what is the role of the United States, because that is going to be very important. Morsi, if you leave it to him, he'll crush them, but he still needs the United States money and support and visibility.
And the President Obama has remained virtually silent about this.
That is an excellent question of this Monday morning. Remember, in 2009, June of 2009, and we've discussed it on your show many times, he was silent on the 1.5 million youth, including many girls, civil society in Iran, demonstrating against the Ayatollahs. Then he was not silent when the Arab Spring was up and when the Muslim Brotherhood were about to take over in Egypt and in Tunisia. And now they are silent. The administration is silent on the secular opposition, to the Muslim Brotherhood. That is telling. It means that whenever the opposition is led by civil society, secular forces, and the regime is Islamist, there will be silence in Washington. It's very, very telling.
All right, we of course need to touch base with you about what's going on between Israel and Hamas. Clearly, we got a ceasefire, but how tenuous is it?
It is a ceasefire. It's when two parties have decided to cease their fire until something else happens. To make it very simple, the Israelis have no interest in opening fire because they are the ones who will be receiving those rockets on their civilian population.
Right.
Hamas leadership is coordinating this with two parties in the region, with the Iranian regime that is supplying them with missiles and rockets. And by the way, we know that there's a shipment coming through the Red Sea to Hamas.
Let's stop right there because I want to talk about that. The Israeli intelligence has spotted a ship that they believe is being loaded with weapons in Iran that could be headed to Gaza?
It is most likely heading to Gaza. And let me remind our listeners, over the past 4 years, and now we can talk about it clearly and understanding it, there were unknown raids by unknown planes or other means into the coast of Sudan and Eritrea, and shipments of weapons were destroyed. Now we understand what that was all about. It was Iranian shipment coming through the Red Sea to Gaza then. So now what the difference is that the Iranian leadership is public about it, is open about it. And then the big question is going to be, will Morsi allow those shipments to go through the Suez Canal into Gaza? That's the biggest question.
All right, so I got one more thing that crossed our wires this morning. Ehud Barak has stepped down as defense minister in Israel. What do you read into that?
There is a disagreement on what to do next with Iran, and there is a disagreement on how to handle the issue of Gaza. You know, in Israeli politics, everything is possible. He may come back after negotiations. That's how Israelis do it. Or he could be replaced, and then his party will withdraw from the coalition. Yet to be seen. Too early.
So do I have this right? Netanyahu wants to take a stronger position than Ehud Barak does?
On the one hand, and probably it has to do with the coordination with the Obama administration. These are possibilities, knowing what Israeli politics are at this point.
Well, I mean, given all that we've talked about, the turmoil in Egypt, the ceasefire that's now in place, but it's tenuous, and you got Ehud Barak basically stepping down because one senses that Netanyahu wants to be a bit more aggressive toward Iran. Iran, at the same time, shipping weapons into Gaza. It would look like this is a very delicate time in your part of the world.
There is one missing piece in the puzzle. Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah of Lebanon, 48 hours ago, threatening that he will cover north of Israel with as many missiles as needed. It is much more serious than one would think. It's Israel on two fronts, north and south, plus the Iranian penetrating Iraq. It is very, very delicate.
Well, all a very good reason that we have you on the program today to keep us abreast. We may be contacting you again. I hope you'll come back.
I will be very happy. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Walid Phares, Fox News Middle East analyst, a man who helps us understand that very complicated part of